Hello everybody, my name is Carole. Welcome to my sewing room for #Friday Sews, where this week I'm going to talk about my adventure into doing box pouches. Now I know a lot of you will have done these before, but it's something I've always been scared of trying for some crazy reason. I did have a bit of fun along the way, but yeah, I have got some successful ones to show you, but I did learn a lot as I was sewing them. Also, behind me is a super comfy hoodie that I made, and I made it just before I went away on holiday. As you can see, I'm back now. I just want to tell you all about that and why I made it. So I really hope you enjoy this week's chat in my sewing room. So would this be a #Friday Sews without telling you what I'm wearing? No, it wouldn't. So I did a long walk this morning with my rambling group, and I wore this sweatshirt and it stayed on because it's quite damp today, but I do absolutely love it. This is Butterick 6388. This version here, as you can see, it's got lots of style lines, which actually you don't see. Have made the dress version, talked about this pattern endlessly, but I do really love it because it's got this lovely collar that kind of keeps you snug and warm at the back without it being sort of choking. So it stayed on, and the funny thing is, when I made this, I think I made it this time last year, or was it February? I can't remember, but I did put a huge Disney design on the front of it, big like a plique thing. As you can see, that came off, but it meant I could still wear it. So yeah, I love this. I definitely want to make another one this year, and I've already got about 3 or 4. But why did I start making some box pouches? It is something I've always looked from afar and kind of thought, what is the benefit of them? And then I realised actually probably why they are so popular. So these are the normal pouches I make. Beautiful pouches, absolutely love these. It's Adam Sews pouch pattern, and I've made so many of these, they're brilliant. But as you can see, they open kind of right up. Now, if I'm using it for makeup when I travel, what tends to happen is the makeup just sort of falls out. When I open it out, makeup falls out everywhere. So I thought maybe a box pouch would be the answer. Now, what do we do when we want a pattern or something like that? We go onto YouTube, and funnily enough, I came across, and I will link her channel down below, a lady called Alex Manning that was doing a really clear tutorial on how to do a box pouch. Now, she did have a link to a free PDF. Actually, I had a bit of trouble getting that PDF, but that might be due to my email rather than anything else. But she was very kind to send it to me in the end. But I tried to do it without the dimensions, and that's where I got into trouble. I then came across a video where it taught you how to work out mathematically the dimensions. I tried. No, didn't work out. So my very first box pouch didn't turn out the size I wanted at all, and I think maybe I only cut 1 piece, 2, I don't know what I did, but ended up being this little square box. Now I have to say, nothing that we sew gets wasted, does it? Because I needed a little square box, actually, more than I knew, for all my adapter plugs, for my charging plugs for travel. So in actual fact, it turned out to be a very useful little pouch, but not quite the size I wanted for my makeup. Now, I was just using fat quarters and these zips. Now I have a huge amount of these Amazon zips. They're really cheap, so I don't mind just cutting them apart. Obviously they're long, I just cut bits off, but I think they only work out about 14p each, so I'm not going to cry over wasted zips. But yeah, that was my first little try of the box pouch. Now, if I take the charger out, I will show you. I hate doing binding inside pouches and bags. So if I can find a method that avoids that, that's what I do. So this is one of those methods where it does completely avoid the need for any lining. Alex also shows in her video a different method completely. Rather than having a seam along the bottom and then you leave the gap and then you turn all inside out, which is always really exciting, isn't it, when you birth the bag. She used the zipper gap method, where you actually leave a gap in the zip. I wasn't a massive fan of that, I have to say. So it just means that when the bag is complete, you end up top stitching it back on. I made a bit of a mess of that, and it was fiddly, so I'm not sure I'd do that again. I'd probably just go back to that whole birthing thing. But what it did mean, rather than normal, you've got the lining sort of flopping about. The lining is more contained that way. You win some, you lose some, don't you? So that was the first one I did. So I then got the proper measurements and went on to make another one, which I love so much. Same fabric, as you can see. For once, I put a label on the front, and I very rarely use labels, because especially in clothing, because I find it just annoys me. But actually had a label. I actually put a label on the front, but I absolutely love this. So again, you've got the box corners, but all enclosed, all lovely. Now, I made this using quilting batting, quite lightweight. As you can see, it's very saggy. Obviously not with makeup in, it's very saggy. So when I got home, I thought I'd love to make one for my daughter, but I'd try and use something different. And I used bag foam, like foam. And this is what I've come up with. Now, this is for my daughter, so it's Disney, Ariel, her particular favourite. Wow, doesn't that look different, made out of the foam rather than kind of a saggy bag? But I love my bag, so I'm not worried about that. But yeah, this was made out of the foam. I just made some little zip pulls out of the same fabric. So again, so this is done where you've got the seam and you birth it. But again, you've got the clean inside. Now, if you've never come across how to do that before, I'm going to put a bit of filming in. Sorry if I'm preaching to the converted and you all know how to do it, but it's something I'd never seen before, just a method of doing it. So I'm going to put some film in of the fun I had trying to do it on this bag. This method of doing these box corners is, I think, really fiddly, but it does save from doing the binding on the inside. So the idea is, you have to, if you've never come across it before, you're kind of squaring that out and then having to square these corners out and match those like that. And it is fiddly and it does take a lot of time. I've tried to make it easier myself by pressing that line there, so I know that line's got to meet the zip, and I've also marked these corners so I know that those corners have got to meet that corner. Honestly, it's fiddly, as you can see. I would hate to do it on a small box pouch, but if I just fiddle around while I'm chatting to you, and you will see that that is kind of how it's got to go. Fiddly, isn't it? So I've turned it out to check the corners. Not bad. Bit of a crease. Not bad. Not bad. Absolute pig's ear. Look at that. You've got a bit of lining there. It's all squidged in. So in other words, I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board. Luckily, I hadn't sealed it up, so I'm going to have to unpick that one and do it again. I can't remember which one it is, but I have to say, I think they're all okay now. Obviously, it needs pressing and tidying up, but yeah, I think that's all okay. So I'm really pleased with that, apart from the fact that should have been lower down. Do I go back and change that? No. So as you can see, it is quite fiddly, but it's worth doing if you're like me and you really are anti-binding. So this is a present for my daughter. It will be a Christmas present because I always give her like makeup bits for Christmas. So really excited that I managed to get that out of a piece of scrap fabric as well. So all's good. I did in the end use measurements from another box pouch tutorial. So I'm going to put that one down below as well, because that gave me the size that I wanted. But yeah, that was my whole box pouch adventure. I'd always been scared of before. It is typical me. I always think, I look at people sewing these things and I think, oh, I can't do that, can't do that. But then I do, and it really builds my confidence. Doesn't matter how long I've been sewing, and I've been sewing a long time. So let's talk about the hoodie that I made. Now, I have made this hoodie before in this same fabric. It is down in the holiday home though. It lives down there, and when we were down there a few weeks ago, I thought, I wish I had this same cozy hoodie at home as well as down in the holiday home. So I just cut the filming to bring her a bit nearer. This is the same type of fabric as I got in a subscription box a few years ago from My Sewing Box in Bournemouth. So it was, how can I describe it? It's like a cord. It's super, super soft jersey. It's delicious. I want to say delicious, completely the wrong word, but it's sumptuous. It's amazing, and that's something I always really look forward to wearing when I went down to the holiday home. So I thought, I wonder if I can still get that fabric, and I could, and I've got it out for you. Got it from Jelly Fabrics in the UK. So I was so pleased I managed to get hold of it. The one I've got down in the holiday home is green, but this is burgundy. So I made this hoodie. Now, this hoodie is from Simplicity 9240. I have criticised this in the past before for a couple of reasons, but I know now how to work it. Because it is a unisex pattern and I'm a small lady, I use the extra small size, but and I find it's okay actually, it's not too bad. The problem about this pattern that I've said before on my channel a few years ago is the fact that the band measurements, the pattern pieces, you need way longer than they actually say for the wrists and for that, because it would just be too gathered. So if you have got this pattern, cut much longer than the pattern piece suggests and then just work it out for yourself. So when I made this before, I might put a link to the video actually. The pocket is sort of extended from my boobs down to the waist. It was huge because it's a unisex pattern, so it goes all the way up to man's sizes with one size pocket piece, the same size. So obviously if you're making a extra small, this pocket is going to be enormous, and it did. It came, it's huge, it's hilarious, the picture. But obviously, so I knew, I made a note to next time make the pocket smaller. I didn't think about one thing though. So I thought, okay, I still want the width, but I will chop the top off. So I did. I just folded it down and went along merrily, forgetting that when I do chop the top off, it's going to make this portion a bit narrower. I can get my hands in. One side's better than the other, but yeah, didn't think about the fact that perhaps I should have taken a bit off there as well, because the depth of the hole, obviously I'd lost what, sort of 2.5, 3 inches. Never mind. This pocket that I put on here is much more reasonable for the size garment that I've made. So yeah, it's my bit of a gripe really. Don't put the same pocket size piece for all sizes, and that happens all the time, doesn't it? The other thing is, because I'm short on fabric, I have learned this in the past though, the hood always takes up way more fabric than I think it's going to. As long as you keep this bit the same along the bottom, as you can see by the pattern piece, because of how much fabric I have, I've just reduced it in. So you can make it much narrower and shorter. You can do whatever you want, as long as you remember to keep that bit the same size where it meets the neckband. So here she is, cozy, so lovely, with the hood. I didn't bother to line the hood, obviously. It's just all, luckily I've got burgundy overlocking thread. So, oh, I will say I used a zigzag stitch on a lot of this actually. I don't normally do that, but just where the hood sort of bit there joins the seam there, because I knew I could get away with it, I used a zigzag and that was much better. I did use contrasting ribbing for the cuff. Not contrasting, it's more or less the same, isn't it? But slightly. I use that for the hemband and the cuff. Obviously you'll see me out in the garden if the rain stops in this, and I absolutely love it. I'm so glad that I had time to make it, and I forgot all about it when I was away, and I walked back in the sewing room, there it was on the mannequin, and I was happy. Now, I put a fun video out this week. Now, I like doing these chatty videos every now and again because it's not just all about sewing, is it? All about showing you garments week after week and things. It was talking about my good habits and my bad habits in my sewing room. It was a really honest video, poking fun at myself, just saying about the honest things that I do that I know are good and I know are bad. So I called it the good, bad and the ugly, because the ugly of course was the mess in my sewing room. Now, I have had some amazing comments to that video. Oh, if you haven't seen it, I will link it up above. I've had some amazing comments, and also people telling me about their habits. Now, there are a few on there that I do as well, so that was brilliant. One of them, well, a couple of people said the same. I talked about dropping pins, and they said they had a magnetic stick to pick them up. So do I, but I had completely forgot I had one of these. You know, one of these magnetics. It's meant to be for engineers, car mechanics, isn't it? Where it's got the torch on the end, if I turn it the right way. Yeah, so I could just sit in my sewing chair and sort of, you know, wave this about to pick them up. So I thank you for that, because I've forgotten I had that. A couple of you talked about having pins in your mouth. Yeah, I think definitely done that. You know, when you're pinning something and you just have a couple in your mouth. Really bad habit. We should not be doing that, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever stop, will we? What the main thing that I think everybody commented on, if you read the comments, they're amazing, was batch. I talked about I don't cut my interfacing at the same time as I cut out my fabric, and I tend to leave it to the last minute, even the point on the instruction when it says put the interfaced piece, and then I forget I haven't done it. So a lot of people talked about block interfacing. I kind of knew what that was, never really done it. So I think I'm going to try that. Obviously you're going to waste fabric and you're going to waste interfacing, so those are the downsides, but it's definitely worth giving it a try. So for the next garment I do that needs interfacing, I'm going to do that because so many of you talked about block interfacing. When I said block interfacing, I meant block fusing before everybody comments, but you know what I mean. The last thing I wanted to say was, a lot of you, I talked about how I store my patterns. Somebody mentioned about putting a little swatch of fabric onto the pattern, and that's how they keep, so they remember what they made with it. I love that idea. Whether I would do it and keep it up, I don't know, but I could, you know, in my files with the binders, I could slot a bit of fabric in there. But honestly, I learned so much, and I'm so glad I did that video because I've been wanting to do that for a long time. As I said, I like being honest about my sewing. It's my hobby. It's fun for me. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I've loved reading all the comments. Did I do any sewing on my holiday? Absolutely none. I did take some crochet to do on the plane. I did sit with my grandsons, so it wasn't like a normal plane journey where I could just sit and get absorbed in something, so I was kind of looking after them. But I just made one of those, what do they call it, a pot holder? It's a really simple pattern. I can't remember where I got it from though, again, another YouTube clip, but just out of some cotton yarn that I got from Hobby Lobby, actually, in America. I did not have enough. I must have crocheted very intensely, or this was a bit different. I made a few of these before. You basically just sew, you're just going round and round and round, then you kind of twist it and join the bits, so you've got this join along the middle. It's very clever, but this time around I didn't quite have enough fabric, so it's slight fabric yarn, so it's slightly twisting. Now I've got blocking pins, but I can't find my mat or any of my mats to do some blocking on it. But actually I just laid this down with a book on it and it's come out flat anyway. So yeah, that's the only thing I achieved. I did half on the way out and half on the way back. Right, so after all that rabbiting on, one more thing to show you, and that was me inventing something again. Now, I have made this years ago. It's just a really simple little pouch, round pouch. I have since added kind of a little clip there, but I use it for my Apple earpods. So what I tend to do is inside my bag, a travel bag or something, I will clip it to the top so they don't get lost in the bottom. But I thought, oh, I wonder if I could make that for something else. Honestly, so easy to make this. So I have some Apple AirTags. So these little creatures. So these are so you can easily find and track items that you've got, whether it's your keys, handbag. I got one in my handbag. I got one in my rucksack. My husband has one on his bike. They're just easily trackable. If you've got an Apple phone, then they're not cheap, but they're worth it. So I've got one in my rucksack, but the handbag, but very often it's just dropped in there, and they can be easily lost and brought out with something else and dropped and whatever. So I thought, I wondered if I could make a mini one of these so I could put my Apple tag in, which I did. I've made the cutest little thing. It could even be smaller, but then it'd just be too fiddly. But yeah, I've made this cute little baby version, and I've just put the clip on there. So I'm going to clip that inside my bag so I know where it is in future. I actually put these in my luggage as well at the airport, because then you can see when you land, you can see if your suitcase has landed at the same airport as you. Sometimes obviously it loses signal, so it says it's back in the UK, but more often than not it's really great fun actually, because then you're standing at the airport waiting for your bag to come through and you can kind of locate it and you can see when it's going to turn up. Great fun. But back to the thing I made. This is so easy to make, and I've made it a really basic beginner friendly way. You could make this any size you wanted. So I've cut out for another one. What I might do is film it, but the reason I say it's beginner friendly because there's no finishing on the inside. It's just pinked with pinking shears. I made this one 5 years ago, and it has not done badly at all. As you can see, hasn't fallen apart even though it's just pinked inside. So it is a really beginner friendly little project. So if you think you could have a use for one of those, but as I say, I've cut another one out, zip, but even that's not difficult at all. So I may film me making one of these because it's super simple. Oh, let's put my Apple tag back in there. But yeah, I'm really happy. I'm really happy I found another little thing. I love making things like that. If you've watched my channel for a long time, you will know I love solving problems. That is all I have to report on this week. I'm actually filming this on Wednesday evening, a bit early, because tomorrow, being Thursday, I've got my new lights being fitted in my sewing room, so I'm really excited about those. So it meant I've got to clear my room a little bit, so I'm filming this a bit early. Obviously we only came back from holiday on Monday, so all the sewing I have to show you is just really little things, but I do hope you've enjoyed this week's Friday sews anyway. The photos I'm going to put at the end are not actually from the holiday. I'm actually going to put them from the Halloween sort of trail that we did just before we went away. So it's sort of we got a forest nearby, you know, these companies come in and they do spooky lights and light up the forest. So I'm going to put those photos in this week. Yeah, I'm going to do that, and then next week I'll put some holiday ones up. Didn't take much because to be honest, we didn't really leave the pool and the hotel much at all this time. We had so much fun playing with the boys. It was brilliant. I kind of really switched off from everything and just spent some time with them and family, and we had a really great holiday. So plans for next week: I've got another sweatshirt that I want to make. I've got and another sweatshirt I forgot to make. I want to keep using all the fabric I bought recently. I've got so many plans in my head. What I tend to do is, excuse me reaching, what I tend to do is before I go away, rather than come back into the sewing room and just draw a blank about what I was going to do, I write down all the things that was going around in my head before I went away. So I've come back and as you can see, loads of things to make on there. It is gift for November season, hashtag gift for November. So that was why I got one of the gifts made. But yeah, I'm going to start thinking about making some things for those. And garments for me. And anything else that pops up. I really hope you've enjoyed this week's hashtag Friday Sews. Even though I got not much to share. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're subscribed, thank you so much. Even if you haven't, thank you so much for being here and spending some of your time just watching me chat about sewing. I hope to get a video out to you next week, but I may not because we're away this weekend. We shall see. But thank you again. Have a wonderful week, wonderful weekend. Happy sewing, and I will see you soon. Goodbye for now.